If I found somebody random in my house, I would probably run. However, he did have a southern accent and was hot, so she stayed. So can't blame her, can we? Hello and welcome back to, or welcome to my channel if it's your first time here. I'm going to talk about the 5 books that I read in February, and we are just going to jump right into it. In February, I read 2 physical books and 3 ebooks. I'm going to start with my physical books because I have them here with me, and then we will get into the ebooks later. The first one I want to talk about is Anxious People by Freida McFadden. I read this book as a book club pick with my friends. We do a book club typically every month, and this was the pick for February, and everybody ended up loving it. This is a story about a bank robber. Our story picks up when a group of people are at an open house. They are at this apartment that they're viewing with a real estate agent, and in the middle of the viewing, a bank robber comes in and holds them hostage. Through the book, we go through each of the characters that are in this apartment, and we learn about why they're there, different trauma that they've been through, the relationships to one another. It's just human. That's like the best word I can use to describe this book. It just feels like a very human experience. The story is being told after the bank robbery and during the bank robbery. When we flip to the present time, after the bank robbery, we're following 2 police officers who are trying to figure out who the bank robber was and how they got away. But if you're in the mood for something that is very heartfelt, very deep, just very human, this is a fantastic read. I'm gonna read you a quote from this that I really love. Okay, this quote is from page 184. When you're a child, you long to be an adult and decide everything for yourself. But when you're an adult, you realize that's the worst part of it, that you have to have opinions all the time. You have to decide which party to vote for, and what wallpaper you like, and what your sexual preferences are, and which flavor yogurt best reflects your personality. You have to make choices and be chosen by others every second, the whole time. I just really like that quote, and I wanted to share that with you. So that is Anxious People by Freida McFadden. This was 4.5 stars. I was totally wrong. There's 6 books, not 5 books that I read, because Anxious People was like half January, half February. We're just gonna keep it moving. The next one, and my absolute favorite for the month, possibly my favorite that I've read in a very long time, this is The Things We Cannot Say by Kelly Rimmer. This is a historical fiction about Nazi-occupied Poland, and this will absolutely make you sob. We are following 2 main characters. One is set in 2019 and one is set during World War II in Poland. So the one who is set in 2019 is a mother of a son who has autism. The son is nonverbal and he uses an iPad to communicate all of his thoughts. The woman's grandmother is in the hospital and sick. She's, from what we can tell, very close to the end, and she brings her son to the hospital to visit her grandmother, and she allows her grandmother to use her son's iPad to communicate with them because she's having difficulty with communication. Through the communication that they partake in through the iPad, the granddaughter learns that the grandmother wants her to go to Poland and find some answers for her. And it's very vague, and the granddaughter kind of has no idea what she is looking for, no idea why she is there, but something is calling her to Poland and telling her she has to go for her grandmother. We're also following the story of our main character, Alina, who is a teenage / 20-ish-year-old girl living in Nazi-occupied Poland. She is just engaged to the love of her life, and he has to go away to Warsaw to study to be a doctor. When he leaves to go to Warsaw, the war really hits full force and the Nazis occupy Poland, and their story is kind of about how the 2 of them find each other again. The 2 timelines are connected. You don't know how until the very end, but they are connected, and when I tell you, you will sob, I'm not kidding, you will sob. Like, this book ripped my heart from my chest, stomped it over my knee. That's how good it is. I'm gonna find a quote from this to read to you guys to convince you to pick this up, because fantastic book. This is on page 299. Please, I caught his head in my hands and I kissed him then, and that kiss said everything there wasn't time to say. We will always find our way back to each other, Alina, he breathed when we broke apart. Our love is bigger than this war. I promise you that. That is The Things We Cannot Say, Kelly Rimmer. 5 stars. The next one we have is a little bit lighter. This is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This is a contemporary romance and I loved this book. I'm typically a little bit picky with my romances. This one, however, really hit the mark for me. This follows our main character who grows up with this very unique, loud, adventurous aunt who took her traveling around the world. She always tells her niece growing up that the apartment that she lives in is magical. The story takes place a couple years later. Our main character Clementine is fully grown up and her aunt has passed away. Clementine has inherited her aunt's apartment and she soon discovers that the apartment truly is magic. This apartment has the ability to slip back and forth in time, 7 years forward and 7 years backward. One day she walks into the apartment and she finds a random stranger in her apartment. While I feel like most people probably wouldn't go down the path that she went down, if I found somebody random in my house, I would probably run. However, he did have a southern accent and was hot, so she stayed. So can't blame her, can we? Thus begins this journey of a relationship that goes on back and forth in time, slipping between 7 years in the past and the present. The book takes place in New York City and we dive into the world of book publishing and restaurants and good food and finding love in good meals, and it's honestly a very comforting romance. There's a lot of very human emotions in this book. There's a couple trigger warnings for self-harm, suicide, so keep that in mind. However, the way that the author approaches these subjects is very respectful, and it seems like either she has experienced this in her own life or she did her research, because it's beautiful the way she talks about these things. It made me cry. I read almost this entire book on a flight to Mexico. And it was perfect. I really liked it. I had a great time reading it. And it was just like a really nice romance. I don't know. It was just a really good romance and I really enjoyed it. So I'm definitely going to come back to her writing when I'm in the mood for romances, because I'm very picky. This is a quote from the book that I really loved. It just I felt like I was there, so I want to share this with you. This is our main character talking about her late aunt. I used to love the way she saw the world, always as one last breath before the end, drinking in everything as if she never would again, and maybe I still loved bits of that. I loved how she spent every moment making a memory, every second living wide and full, and I hated that she never once entertained the idea that she would have another dance in the rain. The confused looks of the tourists in the courtyard of the Louvre melted into wonder as she pulled them, all strangers, one by one, into the storm. A violinist who had sought shelter under the brim of a newspaper stall lifted their instrument to their shoulder and started playing again, and kids ran out to join us, and soon everyone was spinning around in the rain, because that was my aunt. That was the kind of person she was. The melody of an ABBA song sang over the violinist's strings, a yawp about taking chances, about falling in love, and we danced, and the next day I'd caught a cold and spent the rest of the week in the apartment we'd rented, surviving on brothy soup and club soda. We never told my parents that I'd gotten sick, only that we danced in the rain. That is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This was 4 stars. All right, now we are on to some ebooks. The only ones that I read this month are all by Freida McFadden. I was just in a little bit of a kick with her. I don't know why. If you're new to Freida McFadden and you've never read her, the best way I can explain her books are they are super fast-paced. They're not the most profound thrillers you'll ever read, but they are perfect when you're looking for something easy to read, fast-paced, and entertaining for the most part. The first one I'm going to talk about is Never Lie. That is also my favorite of her books, I think. Never Lie follows our 2 main characters who are newlyweds looking for a house to buy. They are driving out into this very deserted, woodsy area that is a couple miles set off from any people. They are looking at this house and they are supposed to be meeting the real estate agent there. When they get there, there's a ton of snow. They're in literally the middle of a blizzard and they end up having to park their car like half a mile away and walking the rest of the way, which at that point I would just turn around and go back home, but to each their own. We find out that the home is this huge mansion and it used to be home to this very renowned therapist who wrote a book book about her studies on fear in her patients. She has this very ominous death. We don't know what happened to her, and she kind of just disappeared. Very creepy. However, the two end up staying overnight in this house, and our main character, the wife, ends up discovering the old therapist's office and a bunch of tapes that she collected of her patient interviews, which 100% is illegal, but whatever, makes for a great story. We are following as the wife is listening to all of these recordings, and she's also learning a lot more about her husband. Keep in mind, they are newlyweds, and they only were dating for, I think, like 6 months before they got married. So they don't know each other. They really don't know each other. So she's learning more and more about her husband while she learns more about this dead therapist. And as time goes on and nobody shows up, no real estate agent shows up to this house, no other people show up to this house, the wife starts to put some things together, and that is where I will leave that at. It is very fast-paced, very creepy and interesting, and I had a good time reading it. I think I gave this one 3.5 stars. The next book by Freida McFadden is Ward D. This one was slightly less interesting, however, couldn't put it down. There's a little bit of a disconnect there. I don't know. This follows our main character who is in med school, and she gets assigned an overnight shift in Ward D, which, as you can assume from the cover of this book, is a very ominous ward to work in. This is like their highest security ward. All of the people who are staying in this ward have a very dangerous and violent history, and she is absolutely scared to be working overnight, let alone working overnight with her ex-boyfriend. We follow her overnight shift. That's the whole entire story, just one overnight shift, and it's very weird. We meet all of the patients. The head doctor who is overseeing all of the students this night is very suspicious and seemingly does not give a shit about anything that happens, and it's very weird. We find out that one of the patients staying in this ward is one of our main character's closest ex-best friends. Imagine working overnight at a hospital, psychiatric ward, anything like that, and you find out that one of the patients is an ex-best friend who you had like a bad falling out with. Awful. Absolutely awful. So we have all of this going on, her ex-boyfriend, her ex-best friend, this weird doctor, this scary facility that she's working in, and it's very hectic. Very hectic. It's interesting. There's a cool twist at the end. I didn't love it, but I liked it. I had a good time reading it. So for that reason, 3 stars. The very last one that I have to talk about, and my least favorite book, however, I was so anticipating this one, is The Teacher by Freida McFadden. This one came out in February. I was so excited for it, and it really let me down. Trigger warnings for grooming, for huge age gap relationships in high school. This is about 2 main characters. We are following a high school student named Addie. We find out that the year prior, Addie had somewhat of a weird relationship with one of the teachers, and this teacher ended up getting fired for that reason. She claims there was nothing weird about the relationship. He just drove her home, which is 100% weird. Don't let a teacher drive you home from school. Anyways, next year she's going to school. Everybody hates her because apparently this was a super cool teacher. Everybody loved him. We also are following a couple who works at this high school, a husband and wife. The husband is like this very attractive guy. All of the students have crushes on him, and the wife is like this really strict teacher that nobody likes. This follows all 3 of them over the course of maybe a couple weeks, and it's just weird. Like, when I tell you that this is just weird, it is just weird. I did not like it. We follow the main character Addie as she grows a relationship with the male teacher, and they bond over their love for poetry. It's just weird. Like, it's just weird, and I did not like it. I don't recommend it. It wasn't fun. Take a shot every time I say the word weird. It felt like it was written in like the early 2000s. Like, it felt like Pretty Little Liars, where like that age gap romance that's illegal, let me say illegal, was like romanticized like between Ezra and Arya. Like, it felt like that kind of thing. I mean, obviously it's a thriller, so it's not, but like I still felt some undertones of like, but it's fine, you know. For that reason, 2 stars. All right, and that is my wrap up for the month of February. I know I've been a little bit MIA this month. It's been a very crazy month in terms of health and stuff going on in my family, so I'm going to try my best to be more consistent. I'm going to obviously be making a March wrap up. At the very least, I try to keep up with my wrap ups. If that's the only thing I do, then I'm happy. So stay tuned for a March wrap up. I've already read a couple great books and we're like a quarter of the way through March. So thank you guys again for watching. If you enjoyed this, be sure to like and subscribe to join this little community, and I will see you next time.